Good morning and welcome to MASSCreative's third virtual policy and action update. We're so glad to have you here. I'm here with the whole MASSCreative team, Tracy Konopinski, Selassie Davies, and Sophia Balsamo. Thank you all for joining us. So our first thing, so it's an interesting week this week. So Speaker Pelosi is wants to include funds for state municipalities in the fourth stimulus bill. That is in the works. It's important for me to note in this moment that the chair of Ways and Means on the House side, who would be a lead architect of this fourth stimulus bill, is none other than Congressman Richard Neal from the Berkshires in Western Mass. That's an important thing to remember. And if any of you on the call are a constituent of his, it's always a good idea to just drop a note, let him know, let his staff know what's going on, how this crisis is affecting you personally and your organization. The other thing I want to mention is that, so as part of the CARES Act, we know that $75 million was allocated to the National Endowment for the Humanities, as well as $75 million to the National Endowment for the Arts. So the Mass Cultural Council recently made an announcement about what they are going to do with the $475,000 allocation that they got as part of that endowment, or as part of that CARES Act money. And they are going to, the council voted to use it to provide support grants for creative youth development organizations across the Commonwealth. There's going to be a link in your chat box where you'll be able to see the announcement from the Mass Cultural Council. We recognize that there are so many organizations that are really feeling the pain. And we also know that creative youth development spaces are, for many young people, a essential lifeline in normal times, let alone in unprecedented times. So we really want to applaud the Mass Cultural Council for making that decision and providing those funds. The other thing I just want to mention to you that we're sort of monitoring is that on a Wednesday night, the Department of Labor put out some guidance about the unemployment liability for nonprofits. So this is the issue we've talked about before, which is nonprofits that did not pay into the unemployment funds for their states should, thanks to the CARES Act, receive 50% basically relief from the federal government. And then we're working and advocating along with our partners at Mass Nonprofit Network to see how the state can also help with that relief effort. The guidance from the Department of Labor was not great. It basically said, no, nonprofits have to pay, and they have to pay now. But very quickly, it seems that the Department of Labor also backpedaled after hearing from a lot of national associations about what that would do. So this is just something I want to flag for everyone that we're monitoring, and hopefully we'll have more information on soon. And it's something that's happening. Okay, so now down to the state updates. So in relation to what I just mentioned, I want to remind everyone about the bill I talked about last week, which is providing assistance to nonprofits related to that unemployment liability. I'm going to put in the chat box the action alert. It's really exciting to see that I think it's about 37 legislators have signed on as co-sponsors of this bill already. If you go to the action alert, it will actually, you put in your information and it'll give you a message if your lawmaker has already sponsored it. It will be a thank you note. And I want to remind everyone, thank you notes are just as important as asking electeds to do things. The other two things that are happening up at Beacon Hill are, one, an interesting little thing is happening over on the House side. So there's a real push to try to figure out how to do remote sessions, right? So currently the House and the Senate are in formal sessions where any present member can at any time call for a quorum. And since there isn't going to be a quorum, it will immediately end the session. In order for the business of the legislature to take place, they need to be able to vote. So the House is working to try to figure out what their rules of the road are going to be about that. And there is some sincere disagreement about how to do that between legislators. And that is holding things up. I don't think it's without remedy, but I do think it's something that's sort of slowing the gears a little bit right now, and we're monitoring. The Senate has already put together some rules about how they want to do remote sessions. Senate President Spilka announced that she also intends to try and get a couple of bills that they had been working on previous to the COVID-19 outbreak back on track. And those included a huge mental health bill that was about expanding access to mental health to residents in Massachusetts, a transportation bill. You know, I was in a conversation yesterday where we were talking about some of the findings of a survey for independent contractors and individual creative and cultural workers. And one of the top things that they were talking about in the aggregate was a real need for support for mental health services. And so there's, again, this moment of that's a bill that would benefit our community if we can get that back on track. So I just wanted to mention that. But then the big things I want to talk about, and I'm sure you all are interested in, is what the governor's been up to. So the other day, he announced that the non-essential business closure executive order has been extended to May 18th. Previously, it was supposed to be Monday, May 4th. So that means an additional sort of slowing and stopping of the economies and stopping us from doing our work. And then he also announced the formation of a reopening advisory board. It has 17 members as well as leadership from the administration. So Lieutenant Governor Polito and Secretary Keneally, who is the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, are the chairs. It has a collection of medical and business leaders making up that 17-member board. And they are expected to deliver a report on May 18th with guidance about how to reopen the Commonwealth for business. So I don't remember who it is, and I'm not interested in outing them in this call, but someone asked when they filled out the form to register for this meeting this morning, does it bother you that no one from the arts and cultural sector is included in that reopening advisory board? Oh, heck yeah. And I think it's also important, it's more important for me to also mention that in addition to the omission of the creative and cultural sector, there's no one from the K through 12 educational space. There's no one from higher education. There's no one from the labor movement or labor unions included in that group. So it's a little, so that's curious, and it's something that we are actively working on. Tracy's going to talk about what we stood up very quickly, a letter requesting that the advisory board use the resources and the expertise of the creative community in their report, and asking for them to connect with and talk to representatives from the creative and cultural community. We stood that up the other day to ask for signatures. I'm really proud to tell you that in less than, gosh, Trace, what was it? In less than 6 hours, we had 250 organizations sign on, and an additional 312 individuals sign on. So that's a pretty powerful demonstration. We are submitting that letter to the governor, to Lieutenant Governor Polito and Secretary Keneally later today. That's not the only thing we're doing related to this reopening advisory board, and making sure that they hear from the creative community, both in terms of how we are, frankly, creative problem solvers and can think about incorporating public health guidelines into a reopening strategy, and hearing about what we're going to need in order to reopen. We all on this call agree that arts and culture are a necessary and vital part of what makes the economic engine of Massachusetts hum, and what makes our communities healthy and well and better connected. And so we want to make sure that that is included, and that we are protected and supported in whatever reopening plan is put together. Next up is Tracy. Thank you all. Tracy, take it away.
Okay, so we want to launch you into the weekend and into next week with some top actions. So I saw in the chat box that someone asked how they could sign on to the letter. Selassie put that in the chat box, and it's one of this week's top actions. There's a very quick turnaround. We closed the letter yesterday at 5, but because there was so much volume, we want to allow the active participants on this webinar to sign it last minute before we send it out. And then the second thing that you can do this week is write a letter to the editor. With the reopening being a top priority, we want to give you some top actions that address those pieces, and then give you some stage notes for how you can do that really well. So we're going to take a couple of minutes just to walk you through tips on how to write a letter to the editor. So you might be asking why media is a strategy. So all of you know this, media shapes public opinion. It defines what's important. People read it. With media, you have a lot of power and influence. And then LTEs in particular are a really great way for you to get your message out there. It often gives a point of view that doesn't get dedicated reporter time. It's a really quick way to respond to the news without needing to get interviewed, and you actually have control over the content, which is awesome. So a couple of tips. One is that you want to know the procedures of your local paper. I'm sure this is review for some and new for some other people, so we want to go through this. So most LTE policies are in the opinion section of the paper, either online or physically in the paper. A couple of tips: you want to keep it short, sweet, and to the point. Make it timely, about 200 words or less. And then you do want to sign off with information, your name, your city, and your town. We encourage you to include your phone number. This portion won't be published, but it tells the editor that you're interested in seeing the LTE published and that you want to be there as a support for them. All right, tip number 2 is to put yourself in the shoes of the editor. So obviously there's a lot of thoughts and opinions that we want to share, but putting yourself in the shoes of the editor will help you think about what will actually get it published. So editors think about, what do people want to read, and how can I show that we're a great paper? So you want to use that for your strategy. So that's why we're encouraging all of you to write letters to the editor. It's okay if multiple letters get submitted to the same paper on the same topic. That actually helps our case in making sure that it gets addressed. The other way to help make it or help get it published is to respond to something that the paper published recently. So for example, you could write a letter to the editor, to the Boston Globe, and reference the first article that they put out about Baker's reopening advisory board. All right, next tip is just to get to it, write your letter to the editor. 3 parts. Pick your main point, you gotta stick to it. We want you to convey your passion and frustration, but just avoid exaggeration, avoid the drama, even though we tend to love drama in the arts. And use your personal experiences where you wanna be very real. The more that it sounds like you and the more it shows a personal experience, the more it will get published and the more it will get read. So here's a really quick sample outline. You want to state the problem, describe the problem, make it feel real and personal, state the solution, and then wrap it up. Really simple. So we have put a template onto our website specifically around reopening the Massachusetts economy. I put this up here not in the intention that you would read it, but just to highlight the problem, the solution, the personal, and then the wrap up. So those 4 points are in there. And then the last piece that you want to do after submitting it, give it a little bit of time, like a couple hours, and you can follow up with the editor, just asking them, hey, did you receive this? Did it meet your guidelines? Are you planning to print it? Is there anything I can do to help? And then please let us know if you've submitted a letter to the editor on arts and culture in the reopening, whether you're using our templates or writing your own. This way we can look out for it and then push it out on social media so it can get to more people. So Selassie's putting in the chat box, we have a submission form so that you can help us keep track of this. And then like every week, we want to make sure that there are lots of actions to take if you want to do more than just the top actions. Obviously not required, but if you have the capacity and you're gearing to go, there's lots of ways you can reach out on the federal level, on the state level, share your story. And then we've also included other non-policy actions that you can take as well. All those resources are in the chat box, and I'm passing this back to Emily.
Thank you, Tracy. So, oh my gosh, we did it. It's 10 o'clock. We did it on the nose. Thank you, Tracy, for the tag team here. So as always, we are interested in your feedback. These sessions are designed to be helpful for you, to be practical, to interpret policy into action. So if there's a particular advocacy tool that you'd like to hear more about, feel free to let us know. You have our email addresses. If there's a particular piece of policy that you want to make sure we're aware of or have further questions on, again, let us know. We are always interested in making these as useful and as user-friendly as possible. And our next update will be same time, same place, Friday, May 8th. There is a link in the chat box now to register. I hope you all have good weekends. I hope you're able to take some time outside, be with loved ones, and take care of yourselves. We don't do this alone. We do this in collaboration and in partnership. So thank you all for your work that makes the advocacy muscle of the arts and the cultural sector so much stronger. All right, have good days. Thanks all.